Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Thank you for joining me today. We've been watching some football this afternoon, trying to get some yard work done, tasks around the house, but it's always a good idea to be thinking about the holidays and how you're going to pull everything together. So today's workshop is going to be about making reusable gift bags, and you can use anything, any type of material to make these bags. I do have some cotton fabric I'll be using. If you've washed it, that's great. If you haven't washed it, that's okay too, because it's not like we're going to be wearing these or anything like that. So you can leave them unwashed for years and years and years. I have gift bags that we've been passing around our family for probably about 25 years now. So they'll last forever. And it's just a nice touch when you're passing around gifts, and it saves a lot on the trash in the following week. So for today's workshop, we're gonna make along one tote, and this is the size tote we'll be making with the strings on the side. So our first project is the drawstring tote. After we've made this tote, I'm going to show you how to change it up a little bit and make a tote. Let me pull this one up. We'll make it a tote like this that has a fold over top. So this one is actually lined and it has a fold over top. And then I'm going to show you, this has a nice little stuffy in the inside of it. So I can throw it in there and tuck it under the tree or gift it to somebody. But what if your gift is a box? When you're using a handmade gift bag, I don't want to knock that one over, you may get these little flaps on the side. So our last project, I'm going to just do a demonstration on this one and a little technique on this one that will tuck the flaps down. So when you're using a square gift, it will just tuck those right down. So those are the three different projects we're going to be making today. Now, actually, I say making, I'm going to be making we'll be sewing together our tote here with the drawstring side. We'll be doing this one together, and then I'll be demonstrating this lined bag and the same lined bag, just showing you how to box the corners. So those are the three we'll be doing today. And to keep myself clean over here, I am going to set these down out of the way. And if you need me to pull them back up so you can see them again, I will be happy to do that. But that just kind of gives me a little cleaner workspace than I have. Now, for the first project, we suggested you have a piece of material that is cut 11 inches by 22 inches long. If you didn't cut it already, that's okay, because that is our step one. Now, if you don't have that much fabric, let's say you're just doing this as a scrap buster or something like that, you can make the same bag in a smaller size. So this is the solid color. It's just a little bit smaller than the one I have planned for our workshop today. So don't worry if you don't have that much fabric, if you're just, have a little piece that you're working with, or maybe you have pieces of multiple types of fabric, and that's okay as well, because for something like this, I just added a little green swatch on the bottom of the plaid. So if your overall fabric is not 11 inches by 22 inches, no fear, we'll work with whatever size you have. But the size I'm going to be talking about today is this 11 inches across and then 22 inches long. So let's go ahead and get started with that. And I feel like I did something wrong here. I think I did. Okay, let's get started. Our first thing is we're going to cut our fabric 11 inches by 22 inches. Now, if you have I just have a ruler here and a pencil. I have a couple other little notions lingering around on my surface here, but I have my fabric, and I'm going to be cutting the first piece 11 inches by 22 inches. And I see what I did there on that one I just held up. I didn't fold it in half the right way. So mine actually is 11 by like 44 inches. Our finished project will be this way, but I made a mistake there. So our finished size will be more like this size. Okay, so the first step is to cut your fabric 11 inches by 22 inches. So I usually like to have my material ironed out before I get started. I'm going to go ahead and cut my material 11 inches by 22 inches without having it cut out. Now, if you have a rotary cutter and an acrylic ruler, this goes really quickly. I'm going to show you my tricks when I don't have my rotary cutter and I just have a pen and a ruler. So I'll get a nice straight clean edge on one side. I have my fold towards me and then the selvage edge away from me. The selvage edge is the edge that comes off the machine. So it likely has like a little fringe on it, or it has a print on it, like it's a solid white like that. That's called the selvage edge. And then your raw edge is the side that is cut already. So that's your raw edge. So from the raw edge, which I've already straightened out, I'm going to measure 11 inches down. So I just take my ruler and I measure from the raw edge along the fold 11 inches. And I'm going to mark that a few places down the fabric. And again, if you washed your fabric ahead of time, that's great. Don't worry about that. A lot of times when I'm working with woven fabric, I do like to go ahead and wash it because it gets out that sizing in there and it makes it a little bit softer. Once I have those marks, I just use my ruler. I take the straight edge off my ruler and I'll line it up on the fold edge, and I will just match my dots up and give myself a straight line. And I'll do that all the way down my fabric from one dot to the next dot. So I have a nice straight line that I'll be able to follow and cut. So I have a line here and I know it's 11 inches down the line. Now, if your material happens to, I dropped my pen cap, if your material happens to have a pattern on it, make sure that you're paying attention to how that pattern is laid out, because you want to, our bag, when we hold up our bag like this, if you have a pattern that has a direction to it, you want to make sure that that direction is going to be up and down, not sideways. So just keep that in mind. I like to use, when I do bags like this, I kind of like to use my fabrics that have no pattern to it. It just makes it a little bit easier as I'm going along. Okay, then you just grab your fabric scissors and you cut along the line you just drew. And if it gets a little off, don't worry. Open your scissors, make nice long cuts along your line. And I say don't worry if it gets a little bit off. You can always straighten it back up. And since this isn't a garment or something you're going to be wearing, if you're a little bit shorter than 11 inches or a little bit bigger than 11 inches, you are absolutely, that's not going to harm your end project. And then what we're going to do is, again, from the fold, we'll measure 22 inches. So if you don't have a ruler that goes 22 inches, you can fold your fabric in half from the fold and measure 11 inches from the new fold. So you'll see what I'm doing here. I'm just folding my fabric in half. And at 11 inches here, it's almost like if I just cut it in half, like right in the middle of your fabric. So why don't we just make it easy on ourselves? Your fabric, now your width of your fabric may be a little bit different. Different fabric does have different widths. So your width may be different, but the width of my fabric here is 22 inches. Now, if you have a bit of a selvage edge on the end, we're just going to go ahead and trim that off as well. So why don't we get our closest to 11 inches and we'll just cut along the fold here. All right, so we're just going to cut that right like that. And then if you have a selvage edge, the selvage edge, remember, is the clean edge that comes off the machine. we're gonna go ahead and trim that off. Now, usually it's very straight. See how that I can see right along there. So I'm just gonna cut that off. If you want to leave it on there, you can leave it on there, and then that just gives you a nice clean edge to work with. But we'll go ahead and trim this down like this. So you have a piece that is 11 inches by 22 inches. If you need to, this is where you want to go ahead and press your whole piece so it's nice and flat. Our next step is to take your 22-inch piece and we're going to fold it in half like this. So I'm going to go ahead and press mine here. So I have my iron and my pressing pad. If you have an ironing board, obviously you can use your ironing board. I just want to keep myself a little bit contained here and not have too much stuff to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this right in half. There we go. Fold it in half. I'm going to get my iron warming up for me. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to drop those in the Q&A. Okay, so once you have that pressed, and you can just press it right in half, so you can just press that right in half. So you'll have a folded edge here, and you'll have two raw edges at the top. This is the right side of my fabric. It has obviously a vibrant color. It's got the print on it. This is the right side, and this is the wrong side. So you see how it's a lot duller than our right side is. So put your right sides together and go ahead and give that a press. Now, once you've pressed it, since I am using cotton, I will have my iron on a steam setting, so it'll give a little steam there. Once we've kind of gotten our fabric nice and pressed clean, we're going to want to take our your measure, either your ruler, or if you have one of these little rulers, these have a glide on it, so you get a really exact measurement. And I like to use this for doing like hemming and things like that. We're just going to take the top, your raw side here, and press it down 1/2 inch. So I'll use my ruler and I'll just measure from the raw edge up to a fold 1/2 inch, and then press that. And again, it does not, don't worry if it's not exactly at 1/2 inch. If it's a little bit more or a little bit less, that is not going to harm our end project. You just want to be consistent across the fabric. So if you decide to go a little bit more or a little bit less, that's okay, as long as that measurement is consistent across your fabric. And then we'll flip it over and we'll do the same on the other side. So you're going to fold, you put it down on your work surface so that the right side is facing down. Fold your raw edge down about 1/2 inch. Actually, not about 1/2 inch. Fold it down 1/2 inch. Use your ruler, measure up that 1/2 inch, and we'll go ahead and press that across. Now, once you have that pressed, we're going to go ahead and just do a straight stitch across this top edge, and we'll stitch that down about 1/4 inch. So if it's 1/2 inch, it'll be right about in the middle of where we folded down. Again, do not, like, this is a beginner project. So if you're just getting started, don't stress out about being exactly within 1/2 inch or anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to switch this over to our overhead camera here. And if you have questions as I'm moving along, please do not hesitate to ask those questions. That's what we're here for. So go ahead and get your questions answered now while we're here to answer those questions for you. All right, let me put this back on. Sorry about that, guys. Uh-oh, did I lose it? Okay. Sorry about that. There we are. You guys get to see all the magic that goes on here. Okay, I think that's okay. Sorry. All right, so here we go. So I've got my sewing machine. I'm using white thread in my sewing machine so that you can really see as I'm sewing, where I'm sewing and how I'm sewing. Normally I would use, of course, a red thread that matches my fabric, so you wouldn't see the stitches, but I wanted to make sure for our project today, you were able to see the stitches. Now, 1/4 of an inch, if you look at your pedal, your foot, 1/4 of an inch is the width of your foot should be about 1/2 inch. So if you keep this folded edge along the outside edge of your foot, that will give you a stitch right down the middle of the seam here at about 1/4 of an inch. And let me just come up here just a little bit more to get that a little better angle for you. I don't know, I thought I was zoomed in, but now it doesn't seem to want to zoom in for me. So I apologize for all the extra stuff in the background there that you guys have to see. Okay, so here we go. Let me grab my foot pedal and I'm just going to do about 1/4 of an inch. Now, I do like to keep my bobbin thread and my top thread off to the side as I start. And that just keeps my bobbin thread from bunching up. And we're going to do that 1/4 inch stitch right on both sides. So you do one side and then we're going to flip it and do the other side. I think I see part of the problem here. Let me just see if I can. Sorry. Oh boy. Okay, so I've got that one stitch done. Now, we don't have to back stitch on this part here. We will do back stitching on other areas of the project, but on this seam, don't worry about back stitching. Just go ahead and do that straight stitch right across the top and the bottom. And then we'll flip it over and you'll do the other side the same way. Okay, so we're just gonna keep my bobbin thread and my top thread off to the side here. And away we go. And you don't have to, because we ironed it, you don't really have to worry so much about pinning it. It's going to stay in place for you. So we don't really have to worry too much about holding it that way. And then I'll snip it there, or you can use, if you have the thread cutter on your machine, you can go ahead and use that. And then I'll clip it right there too. Okay. So let me, I'm going to just try real quick. Do you mind switching my camera around, and I'll see if I can't get this the right holder. So I can get that little clip out of there. Okay, let's see if maybe that'll work next time. Okay, so now once you've done that part, we're going to come back to your iron, and we're going to do one more press on this top seam here. We'll do a little press here. So with your fabric, we're just going to press down from the folded edge. We'll have the wrong sides. So you've got your wrong sides together. See how you've got your seam is on the inside there on both sides. Okay, if you want, give it a nice press out your seam. Get your little clips, your little threads out of the way. Okay, now we're going to mark our seam here. So what I like to do is put your wrong sides together. Put your right sides together. And what we're going to do is mark down the side seam at 2 inches. So on your work surface, take your ruler, and again, your disappearing ink pen, or if you don't have a disappearing ink pen, you can use just a regular pencil on this. That's not going to harm your project at all. We're going to take your ruler and mark 2 inches from the top. Now that 2 inches includes the little sewn down part. So you're gonna start at the fold here that we've got. And you're just gonna mark down 2 inches and put a little dot. Because what we're gonna do from here is we're gonna sew from the dot all the way down to the end. But we wanna leave that top part of our bag open. So you just wanna put a little mark 2 inches down from the top on each side. Now, when I put it in my machine, I'm right-handed, so I like to have my extra fabric off to the left as I put it through my machine. If you are not comfortable having extra fabric, you can roll it like this and put it, or just mark the opposite side at the 2 inches. And that will keep your extra fabric outside of your machine. I'll show you what I mean when we go back over there. And I don't think I was really able to fix the top. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is come back over to our machine here, and we'll switch our camera back over. And I'm not seeing any questions, but if you guys have questions, please do feel free to pop those in there. Okay, so from here, see I've got my 2 inch mark right at the top. I want to have my top of my bag lined up. If you want to, you can always use your wonder clips or a pin if you're worried about getting off your line. You can just clip it right there, and if you want to feel more comfortable, you can clip it right in the center. I tend not to pin on these kinds of projects because it's just such a easy straight stitch. But if you're just getting started with sewing, you may feel more comfortable doing that. So I have the majority of my fabric off to the left side here. And for this one, we're going to do a 3/8 inch seam. Now, if you're not familiar how big a 3/8 inch seam is, it's just a step down from the 1/2 inch. So it's not quite a 1/2 inch. We're going to go 1/8 of an inch to the left. And if you want to see on your sewing machine where that lands, you should have these little guides on the side. Yours may not be marked by like 1/4 inch, 5/8 inch, whatever. They're not always marked, but you should always have lines. But I'll take my tip here and see which line lines up with the 3/8 inch. So right here, this first line outside of my foot, I don't really see, there's not really good, it's got a shadow on it, it's hard to see, but it actually does say 3/8 of an inch. And if you even wanted to, you could drop our needle and you can measure over and see what line you want to line your material up with so that you get a 3/8 inch seam. Now, usually when you sew, a standard seam is about 5/8 of an inch. We're just going a little bit smaller. If you feel like you want to go a little bit bigger, by all means, take it out to the 5/8 of an inch. Your bag will just be a little bit smaller. So we're going to line up our fabric with the side marking, and let me find my little mark there. It's right there. So I'm going to line my mark up with my needle. And since I'm starting at the middle of my fabric, I will go ahead and sink my needle. And then we'll start going forward a few stitches, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to go backwards. Sorry, wrong button. So you want to reinforce that top stitch there just by a few stitches. So I usually go about 4 stitches forward and 4 stitches back. And then you just bring it right down, keeping your guide along the edge there. We're going to bring it right down to the very end of our material, to the 5, right all the way down to the point. So again, I'm at 3/8 of an inch. And I finished my seam there. So I just put the foot up, grab my scissors, and I'm going to clip those threads. And I'll come up here and I'll clip these threads as well, in the front and the back. Okay, so I've got those stitch, that's my first seam, and we'll just rotate it over and do the same on the other side. And as you can see, I've got my mark is right there, so I know where to start, and I'm just going to go straight down. Now, if my mark were on this side, I would just fold my fabric in a roll and bring it into my machine from this side and find my 3/8 inch mark on this side of my machine. But like I mentioned, I sew in my right hand, so I like to keep that right hand side with my fabric on the right hand side. Again, I'm going to sink my needle. I'll do those 4 stitches. And then I'll reverse. Sorry, my arm, I'm trying to keep my arm out of the way. There we go. And now I'm just going to go straight down at the 3/8 inch mark and sew my seam straight down. Now, what happens if your seam gets off and you get over to the right a little bit? That's okay. Again, this is a bag. It's a real simple project in that if you have a few errors, no one's going to notice. So don't worry if your seam goes crooked a little bit. If you're just learning how to sew a straight seam, this is a very fun project for you to work with very minimal stress. I don't want anybody to be panicked or nervous if their seam goes the wrong way. You know, I'm not the wrong way, but if your seam gets a little bit off, that's okay. You know, you can trim it down if you want to, but if somebody's examining your seams, either they're a seamstress and they enjoy looking at how things are constructed, or they're just being critical. That's always my take on it. Okay, so I will swap back over here and let's make sure we don't have any questions. Okay, questions are open. If we could swap back to my overhead, there we go. I'm gonna just leave that camera there. I don't think that's bothering anything. Okay, so from here, we've got our bag sewn up, and you'll notice that you have this opening at the top of it. What we want to do is press the seam open here. And while we're pressing the seam open, you want to press this open flap as if it were sewn. So we're going to press it open, but not like crazy open. You just want to press it following that 3/8 inch. So my trick to doing that is I will do one side at a time. So I'll just hold it down on my work surface, fold it towards me, and grab my iron and fold it over it. Now it'll be a little bit narrow because your seam is narrow. So you're not going to have a whole lot of material to work with, and that's okay. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side, pressing that down, this time pressing away from me. And that's the first part of my seam there. I've got that pressed open. To press open the rest of the seam, it's tricky a little bit because our bag's not super big. So to put it on the end of your sewing machine can be a little hard. There is a sewing arm that you could, or a pressing arm that you could use, and that goes inside of your bag and it will allow you to press open that seam. If you don't have a pressing arm like this, you can put it on your work surface and just press it down, understanding you may get a little bit of press marks on the other parts of your bag. Also, a lot of times I like to just take a piece of wood. If I have an extra piece of wood kind of hanging around from my husband's workroom or a project I've been working on, I can just take a piece of wood and stick it in here, and that gives me a nice flat surface to work with and press that down. Now we'll do the same on the other side. And as you get more experience with pressing down this seam, you can just take, instead of doing it from each side, you can take your pressing arm or on your ironing board and press it open and kind of give it a finger press. With a finger press, you just press that seam open and push on it with your finger as if your finger is an iron. And then once you've kind of finger pressed it, you can bring your iron over and press it for real. So we'll just press this right open here. And you will have the little part down at the bottom seam that doesn't get pressed open because it's on the fold. If you had, maybe worked with another piece of fabric or put a seam in the bottom, this may open up a little bit more, but it's okay. Your bag's gonna have something in it, so you don't have to worry too much about getting this part opened up. Now, once you have those side seams pressed open, there have a nice fold there, and this is going to form the casing for our cord. What we need to do is stitch down at the bottom, across, and back up to reinforce that opening, because you don't want to get your cord in there and then have this raw edge kind of coming out. We want to make sure that that raw edge is going to stay tucked to the inside. So I'll take us back over to our sewing machine, and we'll start stitching from the inside part. So what we're going to do here is you'll just stitch down each side, across, and up. So it's not quite a V, because we're going to keep the same distance. If you were to do a V, you would just kind of come down at an angle and go up at an angle, which that would work too, if that's more comfortable for you. I'm just going to do about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch distance from the fold line, come down about 1/4 of an inch into the seam where the seam is, stuck, and then go across, turn my fabric, and go across again. Now, if your sewing machine has the ability to sink its needle, which means the needle stays in the fabric as you sew, even if you pick up, so when it finishes a stitch, that needle will stay in the fabric. You want to go ahead and choose that option. So I'm going to sink my needle, and I'm lining up this folded edge with the inside part of my foot. I'm going to choose to have my needle stay down after I finish sewing. So see what I mean? My needle stays down. So I'm just going to go across, and you don't have to go fast on this part. We want to make sure we find that where our seam comes together. Your needle sinks down, you pick up your presser foot. We're going to pivot our fabric, hold your seams together, and come across. We're going to pick up that presser foot. So this is why you want to have your needle stay down. Because if your needle didn't stay down, it would be very difficult to know exactly where to put your foot back down and your needle back down on your material. And you can just come right off the material when you're finished. All right, so I'm going to do that one more time on the other side. And I have this, if anybody needs to see this again, I can certainly do this a second time, because this may be something, if you're a beginner, this may be something new for you. And if you want to see it again, I do have some fabric ready to go. I can show you, if once we finish the bag, if you're like, hey, could you go back and do that again? I would be happy to. Okay, so I've got my other side. I've got my seam is pressed open, so I have that V, and we just want to reinforce the side here. So I'm going to I'll put my fabric in. I'm going to sink my needle. So by sinking my needle, I'm just rotating that the right side thing. I can't think of what it's called. And then I'm just going to stitch. And it's just your standard straight stitch. I'm not doing a top stitch or anything like that. I'm just doing a straight stitch. I'm going to sink my needle, and then I'm going to pivot my fabric so that I can come across the bottom here. Pull up my foot, pivot, and come back across the top. And you can see I'm a little bit, oh, sorry, my hands are in the way. I'm a little bit in the off here by like a 1/16 of an inch or so, and that's okay. And that's not going to stress me out, because we're going to be pressing this down one more time and sewing one more time. Okay, so unsink your needle, and there we go. That being able to sink your needle is super helpful when you're working on a project. I do that quite a bit when I sew. Okay, so there we've got on both sides. And if you ever sew a garment, like a shirt or something, and you want to have a little bit of extra room for your hips or your thighs, or wherever your garment falls, you can do the same technique. This would be like the hem of your shirt, and then you can just go up a little bit, and it gives your garment a little bit of extra stretch room, if you will. Okay, so let's come on back to our front camera. We've got a little bit more ironing to do here. All right, awesome. Chanel's our cameraman today. She's doing an awesome job. From here, you should have that little side slit now stitched up. And what we're gonna do is turn the top of our bag down an inch. So we'll just bring our bag is still right sides together. We'll put it on our work surface and bring the top down an inch on each side. So basically, the folded top of your bag will fall where your stitch came down on that side seam. When you did your little V there, the top folded edge will just come right down to match that part there. So I'm just going to take on each side, and we'll just take our iron and come down an inch. If you want to, grab your ruler and just measure to make sure that you're an inch. But again, if you're a little bit off on the top or bottom, don't worry. Like if it ends up being quarter of it, 3/4 of an inch or something like that, you'll still be fine. Your project will still come together. I think the most important thing, if you are putting ribbon through this, you just want to make sure that you have enough depth in the casing to feed your ribbon through. But since I'm using the cording, that was what we recommended, and that gives you a little bit more wiggle room than if you're using like a 3/8 inch ribbon or something like that. So I'm just going to go right along here, press that down, and guess where we're headed next? That's right, back to our sewing machine. Now, when we're back to our sewing machine, we're going to stitch all the way around the bag. We're not going to just be working on one side or the other. So where your seams are, you're going to want to kind of make sure that those match up. And we'll just stitch that. And I like to follow along the stitch line that I've already made. Since it's visible for me, I can do that. It's very easy to do that. And I just will stitch right along there. If you don't have, like if it's a little bit tricky to see your stitch line, if you used, like if I were using red fabric, I wouldn't be able to see these easily. So I would come up about 1/4 of an inch from my folded line. Now on the outside, you don't have any stitching. So you won't see 2 stitch lines. It'll just be on the inside that you might see 2 stitch lines. Okay, and if we can go back to our overhead camera. All right. So back here, and again, I am using, I'm going to use that sink feature. And instead of starting on the seam side where I'd have to like start with these matching up, I'm just going to choose to start in the middle of one of the sides, put your fabric underneath there. And like I mentioned, I'm going to use the seam that's already here, the stitch line that's already here. If I want to make sure that I'm in the right spot, I just am going to sink my needle, and it sinks right into that stitch line. Now, as I stitch along, I'm just going to go nice and slow and stitch a straight edge right in that stitch line. And again, if your machine happens to bunch up your bobbin thread, sometimes that happens to me. It usually means, oops, I'm not paying attention. It usually means my bobbin isn't what's the word? It's not either I didn't weave my bobbin thread properly on the bobbin or in the machine. So if that happens, take out your bobbin and reinsert your bobbin and try again. So here I am at that, can you see that? I don't know how to get my camera to focus on that one spot. But here I am here where my seams are matching up, and I want to just make sure that my stitch lines are matching right with each other. And they are, so I'm just going to walk that right across, and there we go. As I did that stitch line, I also made sure that the top and we're matching as well from side to side. Just make sure that goes under. This is where it's nice to have your arm instead of the board to stitch on, so you can really do this around the round area. Here we go. I'm coming back. Now I'm a little bit, let me get my fabric relined up here so that everything lines up properly. And there we go. So I'm just gonna line that up there. If you want to, you could put some pins here. You could take your Wonder Clips and Wonder Clip this together at this point. I kind of like to do it on the machine as I'm going instead of doing it ahead of time, because sometimes things move around a little bit and I want to make sure that I've got it lined up as I'm going. So I'm going to stitch, and then right about an inch before I match up where I started, I'm going to pause again. I'm just going to line that right up. Take out my Wonder Clip and keep going. So I'm pausing here because I don't want, this is where I don't want my project to ever unravel. So I want to make sure that my threads are nice and they're going to stay in place. So what I like to do at this point is I'll pull on my top thread here and I'll kind of bring it up out of the fabric where I'm looking for I have a little tool that will be helpful. You can just grab a pin if you have a pin, but where it kind of starts to come up here, you want to encourage your bobbin thread to come on up out of your fabric. So I'm pulling this bobbin thread loop here to bring that up and out from underneath. Once that's up and out, I'm just going to trim that off and continue sewing across there. Like I'll just sew a little bit further, maybe a quarter or half an inch further. And then I'll do the same step when I take it out of the machine. I'll bring that bobbin thread up. And some people like to tie it off at that point to make sure that it's not going to come undone or anything. Let me see if I can get it a little closer to you all. So I'll just grab this thread and I just very carefully kind of say, hey there, and I tug on that thread. And as I'm tugging, I can see my bobbin thread start to loosen up. So I just will use, if you have a seam ripper, that's usually what I like to use, or a needle, a pin, you can use that. Once you get a little loop up, we're just going to take this and pull that right up. So you've got now 2 loops there. And then we'll just bring that bobbin thread right up and trim that right off. And now you have a nice clean sewn edge there. I don't think I folded mine down far enough. Yours may come down further. Your 1 inch may have brought you down. So this box here is not visible. You wouldn't see that. Okay, once that's done, then we can go back over to our main camera again one more time. Probably not the last time we'll be switching around. But once we're here, now we're done. We've turned our bag inside out. And we're all done. The last step is to thread your cord through the bag. So to do that, what I like to do is I'll put my bag down and I'll grab my cord. So I just am using this macrame cord. And you want to have a long enough piece that it will go through the one side, go ahead, like it'll come across your bag and come out the other side. So you have enough to kind of tie and play with. So you might hold it in your hand and see how much you need and bring it across and make sure that you have enough to on the ends to tie and play with. Now I'm going to do a little trick here and actually double this up, and I'm going to go through one time. You'll see what I mean. So we're going to double up our thread. So once you've figured out how long you want your cord to be, it should be about 22 inches is a good amount, but you could go as much as like 26 inches. I did this one. Oh, I did this one a lot. I did this one over 36 inches. Because what we're going to do is you put it in one side, and then actually, let's see, let me come in a little smaller here. If I'm being a little too generous with myself. I am. Okay, let's go like this. So it should be, I believe 22 inches is about what we say in the instructions. I'm going to go to 30 inches. I'm going to take my thread and go 30 inches and then double that. So I'll actually go 60 inches, because what's going to happen is we're going to put it in, we'll put it in through our casing, and then you'll have pieces hanging out on each side that we're going to tie together. So we're going to go ahead and cut your, I kind of want to go a little bit longer. I can always trim it off if I want to. I'm going to go a little bit longer. I said 30 inches, maybe a little bit more generous with myself, and go 34 inches on each side. So I have 34 inches twice. I'm going to go ahead and clip that, and then I'll tie 2 knots on it. So I'll tie just 1 knot at the end, because it is this macrame cord, which will fray, which is nice. You want that kind of like tassel-y look, but I'm going to go ahead and tie an end on it. And then if you want to, you can add some beads before you tie it. You can add some beads onto this if you want to like have a little knot or string, little decoration there. You could add beads on your string. And then just take a safety pin, put it through the knot, and then we'll thread this through the casing. Now we're going to thread the same end through the casing twice. Actually, I'm sorry. We're going to go in one side, and we're going to come out the same side. We're not going to thread it through twice. When I say twice, I mean we're going to go, I say twice because we have to kind of come out this side and then come back in to that side. I don't mean we're going to like loop it around twice. So I'm second guessing myself on the length of my cord here. Did I do too much? I may have done twice too much, so we'll see. If you did, you can just save it and use it for, if I did too much, I'll just save it and use it on another bag. Now, when you get to this opening, you'll have like some of your raw seam in there. So you just kind of give it a little of a nudge through, and it'll peek right out. And you just kind of pull it right out. And then we'll bring it into the second side and bring it through there. One year we did, everybody had their own color fabric. So I didn't even have to do tags on gifts. All my kids each had their own fabric, and so they knew, oh, that's my fabric, that's, her fabric. Everyone had their own fabric, which was nice when your kids are little and you're trying to get everything done. It saved me from having to tag everything and have my hand. I think my kids were at the age where they knew my handwriting, so I didn't want them to get suspicious. Okay, so I've got it through on both sides, and I have one loop over here. Now I'm going to marry up my 2 loops here, and my 2 open strings here. So these 2 are going to be together. So you can hold those in one hand, take the other loop in the other hand, and just kind of pull it out like this. So you've got a loop and 2 open pieces, and then bring it to the middle like that. So I have 2 pieces of string on each side. One has the loop, one does not. So the side that has the loop, you can go ahead and clip that. So you have 2 individual strings. If you feel like you want to go a little bit shorter, you can go a little bit shorter. You can add a few knots in it. Again, put some beads on it. If you had like some big wooden beads, would be really super cute. Fringe up that macrame and get like a nice little fringe going there. So I've got 2 little knots there. and my 2 little knots over here. I like to keep my safety pin on the bottom of my cord roll so that I know exactly where that safety pin is when I need to thread my cord through. I keep it right there, and then there we go. And once you put your gift in there, you just cinch up. I did this wrong. What did I do wrong here? I didn't cinch it right. Oh, I see what I did wrong. I see what I did wrong. Okay. Let me show you what I did wrong, because I have to work a little bit too hard to cinch it up, but you can still cinch it up like that. What I did wrong was it does have to loop back around. So let me do that. I have another one here that is ready for the cord. I think, is this one ready for the cord? No, that's not the one. Here's this one. Let me just take my cord out and I'll show you how to fix that. You still will use 2 pieces, so it's not a waste. What we'll do is we'll take one end and bring it back through to the other end. Go ahead and put your pin on there. Put your safety pin back on. And we're going to bring it back to the other side. So let me just make sure I have the right one. I'm going to make that side really small so I know which one I'm bringing through. So this one's going to come on through to the other side. You do have to loop them through twice. I thought I was being clever and saving you a step. But the reason why is it'll cinch, it should cinch from both sides when you do it this way. I forgot that you needed that extra piece in the side to stay together and loop. And that's what makes it cinch. So you just bring that back through. Work that one right through. And it'll have a loop on one side and then the straight on the other side. And then take your other piece, this one, and we're going to bring it through so that this one meets up over here on this side. So you'll have 2 loose ones on each side. But you'll have the 2 that are loose over here. I hope I'm making this right. The 2 that are loose over here are looped here. So it's not cut here, it's still one piece. Okay, so I'm just going to take this one and we'll come back through the other side. And if your knot's a little big, just kind of be a little patient with it, let it work it through and bring it on through there. I'd love to know how you guys are doing. If you're making along with me and you have a free finger to type in the Q&A at the bottom of the Zoom, let me know how you're doing. Have you made your bag? I'd love to know. And as you want to make different sizes, you can just change the size of your rectangle and make it wider or longer. Like, so this one we did a little bit on the smaller side, the 11 by 22. The one I was showing you at the beginning of the class, this one, it was 11 inches by 44 inches was the initial piece. So it really came out nice and long. If you have a long gift you're doing, like a t-shirt or something like that, could fit into that type of gift bag. And here we are here. Now I have my 2 strings on this side. I've got the loop of so this is the loop and the 2 strings are over here. I've got the loop and the 2 strings over there, and then I can just cinch it and it closes right up. And there you go. You can tie this in another little knot if you want to. You could put a little embellishment on here. Grab your tag if you feel like if you still need tags, you can add your tag onto there. And there you go. You've got it ready to go. So again, all you have to do is change the length of your fabric or the width of your fabric to make different size drawstring bags. But that's a really quick and easy way to do a drawstring bag. There's lots of different ways to get the same result. You could even just, instead of leaving that 2-inch gap at the top, you could bring down and add like a do a buttonhole if you wanted to, and thread through the casing through a buttonhole. I've done that before, but lots of fun ideas. I just love this tie. It's so simple and easy. And you can, once you learn how to do this kind of opening, you can make so many different things with this. So that's that. If there are any questions, Kelly got lost and she went rogue. So Kelly, I'd love to know where maybe you got lost and I can help you catch up. Did you not do the casing? So you just have a pouch without the casing? And if that's the case, don't worry. You could always, again, fold it over, make a seam, and just leave a little gap here on the side and put your elastic, your string through there to cinch it up with that. You can also just cinch from one side. Like you don't have to cinch from both sides. You could just have a ribbon that goes in the top and cinches on one side if you prefer. And then you could always embellish and decorate using heat transfer vinyl if you wanted to, or if you're into screen printing or embroidery, even a monogram would be really cute on the different bags. So you can definitely give that a try, different ways of doing your pouches. Now, I did mention that we had a second type of bag that I was going to demonstrate. And don't forget, this class is being recorded, so you can always go back and watch the recording and get some, get ideas or tips and tricks as you're going along if you miss something. This bag is, I did this one as a fold over bag here. So this is cute little fabric. It's got little dogs on it. And the president's side is just a little stuffy. So you can just stick that in there. In the bag though, it is reversible. So you could use it from this side or from the red side if you wanted to. You could fold it over like I had it, or just cinch it at the top and have it look more like a little balloon type of design like that. So you could just do the top like that. Let me show you how to do this tote, because this is another really easy, a really easy one to make. This one may even be easier than the one we did, but since it's lined, people think it's a little bit more complicated, but it's not. So what we're going to do is we'll start with our lining fabric. So I have 2 pieces of my lining fabric, and I cut these 18 inches about, let me see, I think I did these 10 by, they're 10 by 17. I just cut them, I had a piece of square fabric, so I just cut it in the size that I had, like I could just cut it in the middle. So I cut 2 pieces of the outer fabric, 10 by 17, and 2 pieces of the inner fabric, 10 by 17. To start, we're going to take 1 outer fabric and 1 inner fabric and put the wrong sides together, and we're just going to do a stitch on the top, a 3/8 inch stitch right along the top of your fabric. So again, line it up. If it doesn't match up perfectly, that's okay. You can trim it down once you've got it stitched on there, but you're just going to do a straight stitch along the top. If you want to, you can add your little wonder clips or your pins along the top if that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable, like things are going to be a little sturdier there. And we'll repeat that with both of these 10 by 17 pieces. This is a directional fabric, so I want to make sure my trees are facing up. So I want to make sure that I'm sewing in the direction that the seam we're going to put on is the top seam. So if your fabric is directional, you want to make sure that you've got it going the right direction. Okay, if we want to go back over to the overhead again, I can show you how I'm just going to sew that seam, the 3/8 inch seam right on here. Sean, can we, oh, there you go. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that in, and again, I'll use my 3/8 inch seam. I'm going to go ahead and sew straight across. Oops, looks like my thread popped out there. Just rethread. My machine's ever happened to you guys? You're like sewing, and your bobbin runs out, or you realize that you didn't have your top thread in. Happens to the best of us. Happens more often than I'd like to admit. It happens to me. See if I can, I don't know if I have my needle in the right position. Sometimes this is a little bit more work than it's worth. There we go. So it just pulls it back through the back of that little loop there, and I can catch it and bring it back underneath my foot, and I'm back in business. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna do that 3/8 inch seam along the top. And I made sure that since my fabric is directional, that that seam is going on the top. Maybe thinking that you're making your bottom seam, but we're actually making our top seam. And what I love about doing this method is it makes your seam very finished. So it looks really, really finished off. And you can always add a top stitch around it if you'd like. Now I tend to just keep, I kind of call it gang sewing. So I'm just going to keep stitching right along. I'll put my second piece of fabric in there and do that 3/8 inch seam. And then we're going to take it over and press, a little bit off there, press our seam open using the iron. And again, your seam allowance, you could do 3/8 of an inch, you could do 5/8 of an inch, you could do 1/4 of an inch. However works best for you, whatever you're comfortable with. And then just so long as you're consistent with your seam. So we just clip that, and then where I ganged it, I just will clip in the middle there, those little threads, clip those off. There we go. Okay, so if we, I'm just gonna be, well, yeah, let's come back over to the front facing camera if we could. So I've got these right sides together. I'm just going to open it up and give it a good press on that seam. And then we're going to match it up and sew all the way around the garment, but the bag. But we need to leave about 3 or 4 inches of an open seam on the side. So we're going to go ahead and press our seam open. I do a little bit of a finger press first, and then I'll come back in with my iron. So we'll match up our right sides, making sure that we match our seam here. So I'll take one, put it down so right sides are together, turn it over, and this time I want to have my front fabric facing each other and my back fabric facing each other. I'll match up my side seams here, making sure that my seams line up. And this is where I'll use my little wonder clip here. Clip that, and then I'll go over here and do the same thing and clip this. You can use it like wonder clips or pins work, you know, whatever you have to hold your fabric together. You're going to want to go ahead and clip those together there. And then we'll clip it along the bottom, which our bottom seams are going to line up. You can clip along the way if you want to. I just find it's for something like this where you're just sewing a rectangle seam, I don't really like to use a whole bunch of pins. That slows down my sewing. So I can just do a straight line and not have to worry about removing too many pins. Now, the front of your fabric, you're definitely going to want to stitch all the way around. The back of your fabric, we're just going to leave about a 3 to 4 inch opening on one side. So I'm going to start, I'll start right here. I'll stitch all the way around, and then I'm going to end up here, leaving that opening right here. This is how we're going to turn the bag inside out. So we can go back to the sewing machine. I'll start stitching up. So I'm going to come down here, and I'll start from about halfway, a little bit more than halfway down. And I've got my 3/8 inch lined up. My fabric is lined up. I'm going to just double check my corners here. And I want to make sure that I drop my needle so that when I get to the corner, I can pick my foot up, pivot my fabric, and continue stitching. So usually for most machines, when you get to the end of your foot there and you lift your foot and you pivot, that is usually about 1/4 of an inch. So if you've gone a little bit too far, don't worry. You can just back it up a little bit and then lift up your presser foot and pivot. And just check your fabric as you're sewing along, that you are keeping things lined up. It's falling off the side of my desk there. Okay, so there we go. We're just gonna come about, I'm gonna eyeball it. One more stitch. Let's see if how I did. Pretty good. So I'll run with that. And then again, I'm just gonna check my sides, make sure my fabric is lined up. I hold my fabric, if I can, with my right hand a little bit taut, and I make sure that my fabric is staying lined up as I'm stitching along. And I'm using my left hand to kind of guide it and keep everything open and straight. When you're doing a seam like this, you may want to have your full plate on your, here's the full plate on your machine, so that you have a nice large work surface to work with. There's that. And as you get close to this thicker seam, you're going to remove that clip and go ahead and keep stitching. Flip it again, do a little pivot, and off we go. With this little knob, I've just pushed on the right side of the Singer machine, right here, the patchwork. This controls the speed that you can sew. So I was at, turtle speed, and I kind of moved it up a little bit more to rabbit speed. If you are a beginner, you have somebody you're teaching to sew, I know it's helpful to have it go a little bit slow. And it doesn't, I like it when I'm teaching somebody to sew, because even if they push their foot down really fast, when I have this at the slower speed, the machine won't go, just go crazy. So if you're teaching somebody to sew, if you have a grandchild who wants to learn how to sew, or a child who wants to learn how to sew, that's a nice feature. So I'm just going to check so I'm back here, right here's where I started. So I'm just going to check and make sure I'm nice and lined up. And I'm going to come down. Now, I forgot to back stitch on the beginning. So I'm going to add a little back stitch here at the end. And there we go. So now, once I've done that, you can choose to press open your seams if you'd like, but you don't have to. I will press open this opening. So if we'll go back to my front camera, I'm just going to press open the opening the same way I did on the other seam. I'm just going to press this seam open as well. Let's see. I don't think Chanel, can you take me back? Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to open this seam up here, and I'm going to press this open, and I'll do it on both sides. I'm not going to press around the whole bag because it's just going to get I'll open it up with my fingers in the corners and such. So I'll just go ahead, once I've got that pressed to the inside. I do press that opening because I'm going to put some adhesive or tape, or if you're going to sew it back up, you want to it makes it easier to have those seams pressed. Now we just pull everything out through that hole, push it all through. And if I've done this right, which I'm second guessing myself if I had my pattern right, But if I've done this right, everything should line up. My pattern will stay at the top. Yep, my trees are going to be correct. So this is what it's going to look like as you're undoing it. And you can use your hands and your fingers, go inside the bag to those corners and give those corners a nice press open. If you want to, if you used a bigger seam allowance, like if you did a 5/8 inch seam allowance, you may want to trim your corners a little bit so that they press open easier. But again, you don't have to, because it's a bag that you're going to put a little gift in there, and you're going to use it once a year and then tuck it under the tree. Now, I will say that these do work well if you're having birthdays or anything like that. In fact, you can even make a set of bags for somebody and put them, give them a set of bags for different occasions. With the seam open here, I want to close that seam up, and I usually use this product here. It's called Fabriflex, and it's flexible. So if I put this on, it's a glue, it's an adhesive. You can also use like Wonder Web, I think it's called, and put a little piece there and stitch it together. Iron it together, and that will seal it. This Fabriflex works great. It's specifically for seams, and it doesn't get like stiff. So I would come back and I'll put my seam closure there. I'm not going to do that for time today, but that's what I use to close up my seams like that. And then I open up in the top of the bag, you kind of open it up, and you're pushing the lining into the inside of the bag. You're not like going back through your opening because you've sealed that up, but we're going to push the lining inside the bag. So from that seam, we're just going to start kind of rolling it down and pushing your lining back into the bag, not through the hole, because hopefully you've closed up the hole when you're doing this, but you're just going to push that kind of back down into the bag. And then your top, you have this nice seam right here, and we'll just take our hot iron and press that seam closed. Now, I will tell you with this little one, because I did the white on the inside of it, I may put a child's name with iron-on material, like heat transfer vinyl or iron-on vinyl, write their name, and in the cuff, have their name in there. So I'm just pressing that seam down. If you wanted to, you could come back and stitch, do a top stitch along the top of this, so that years to come, you don't have to worry about it losing its structure. But I'm just going to do it like this. Here, and then we'll do one more over here. And again, when you roll down the top, you can add some iron-on material onto the top of this, so that has a person's name right here on the bag. Fun. All right, one more to show you. Our last process, I already have another one that is just like this, little different fabric, but I've already sewn it, because what happens when you have a bag like this, and I'm not sure if my gift is going to fit in here. It will, and it's a square gift, and you have those little ear flaps sticking out on the side, and you want to tuck those in. You can do box corners. So to do a box corner, all you have to do is you do the same process we did on the other bag. You come in through your opening and you pull your fabric apart. And what we're going to do is line up our corners. So where you have your bottom seam and your side seam, you're going to line those up together. So you kind of have to pull your material apart, your two lining pieces. I'm going to pull those apart, and I have them now. My seams are matched on each side, and I'm just going to, once I have that matched, you can iron it if you want to make it a little easier, and then take your ruler and your marking pen and mark about an inch from the top, from the corner. So you're seam pieces will create a V there, and we're gonna mark an inch down from that corner, and we're gonna stitch across that mark. So I'm just gonna kind of come down and mark it an inch down. It would be easier, you know, it might be easier if I do this on my front camera so that you guys can see how I'm marking that. Maybe we can switch over to the front camera. I'll do that on this one so you can see how I've done it. So I'm just going to take my seams here and I pull my fabric apart. And I just do that finger press I was mentioning. So I'm opening up my seam here. And I'm just creating a box. Well, I'm going to create a box is what it's going to do. And you do this to all four corners of your project. The key is to line up those seams. So you want your seams to line up perfectly if you can. I'm pressing it, kind of opening it up on the back. Now you could use your iron and press those open once you kind of feel them out. And then I'm just going to take my ruler and mark an inch down from that seam. And that mark goes all the way across that square. So we're gonna stitch right on that mark. Okay, so let me just do the other side. And we're gonna come over to the front fabric and do the same thing. So if you wanted to, you could press these seams open beforehand with your iron. I don't find an advantage to pressing it with my iron ahead of time. To be honest, I just find the finger press is good. Some people like to clip it ahead of time, which certainly works. So you would before you even sew these together, you would clip this. But I find opening the seams up and just giving them a little finger press usually works. And then you feel where the seams are and line them up with your fingers. You just want to make sure on both sides we're open. So see, I'm open there, and I'm open here, and I can feel through the seams where those seams are. So we're just going to go like that, mark it an inch. Now this is a little bit trickier because my fabric is dark. So my might be a little bit harder to see my line. And so now I'm going to have to rely on where it goes on my machine. And you'll see what I mean, because you can line up your point of your corner there with your machine. So here we go. We're going to go like this. Press that open. Press both sides open. Feel that line up on your seams. So you press it down about an inch, far enough down that you'll be able to mark it. And my ruler here is an inch thick, so I can just use that as my guide. If your ruler were an inch and a quarter thick, you could certainly use that. It would not make a difference. Like you can make your corners bigger or smaller, whatever really is comfortable, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, so here's my first one I did here. There's my line. Did my line already disappear? It is disappearing ink, so it may have already disappeared. Okay, there we go. I'm going to just redraw that line just in case it disappeared on me. Nope, I see it now. Okay, there we go. Now when I go to the machine, you'll see where that line falls and where the tip of my seam falls. So on the next one, I know if I don't have my line, as long as my seam, my pieces here line up with the side of the faceplate, then I'm good to go. I'll have the same measurement. So I'm just gonna make sure that's open and stitch across. You don't have to stitch back and forth, like back seam with it. If you want to, you certainly could. I tend not to. I just like to do one little stitch there and be done with it. And then I can snip across, make it a little easier to turn it. See, I've got that open. Then we'll come over here, do the same thing. And I'm gonna line up along that purple line, but these points are at the top of the faceplate there. Again, if you'd like to reduce the bulk in your corners, you can just snip that down about 1/4 of an inch. And go to the other side. Now this one, it's going to be a little bit trickier to see where that is, where my line was. So I'm going to do my little trick here. I'll make sure I'm flat and open. I changed my camera angle, so I'm hoping you guys can see my hands aren't in the way too much. So I'm just going to press this like this. My tips are at the side of my faceplate. Make sure I'm open over here. I don't want to get that stuck. You don't want to have your fabric folded into that seam. Oh, I can see my pink, my purple line right there. And then lined right up. Exactly where I want it to be. And just kind of pull it out. Trim it down. We have one more corner, and then we're going to turn it inside out, and you'll see how these box corners make it so that your bag will sit upright when you put something of a box in it. Even if you put a stuffy in it, it'll still sit upright. So whatever you like. And I have to say, like, I'm so into the Taylor Swift stuff for teenagers. And not just teenagers, let's be honest. But I love like the idea of adding a little tag that might say, you know, in your such and such era, to kind of give a hint as to the gift, like in your pajama era, if the gift is like pajamas, you don't give it all away, but make it kind of fun. Again, I do have that opening, so I'll use the Fabriflex adhesive to close up the inside lining piece. And we're just going to trim that there. Okay, so now we can come back over to the overhead camera one more time. I think this will be our last time we have to switch around. So I'm just going to come right in here, and I'll put my hand through here. If you have any questions that you didn't get asked or answered, please do pop those in before we head out of the workshop. I don't want anybody to not have your questions answered. So I'm just bringing this back out through the hole again. And I'll do the same process that I did with the one with the little trees there. I'll press the top corner, the top rim. Oh, I didn't press my seam. I'll do that now. I don't want to make it harder on myself when I go to seal this up. So I'm just gonna press that in, and I'll give that a little nice press here. I have some threads sticking out, so I want to make sure I clip those off if I need to. So I'll press that. And then we're just going to pull up the bottom and the top. I've got my top here, it's coming. Right. Now, you'll notice when you do this, you'll think, oh no, it's going to be bulky because my sides have gotten smaller. It's not. It fills out just fine, and it'll all look great. So this is my lining piece. This is my front piece. I'm going to just come where my seam is and start pushing my lining inside the bag. And hopefully you've sealed, when you do this, you'll seal up that side piece before doing this part of it. The name of the fabric glue I use is called Fabrifix. And it's a permanent adhesive specifically for fabrics, and it is washable. So if you are, in a pinch for a hem, that works out great. Let's come up here, back to the top. I'm just going to press this real quick on the top here so I have a nice fresh seam. And then you can just use any ribbon that you'd like to tie it up with. And what we do, sometimes you can, you might want to stitch the ribbon onto the bag at the seam. That way, in years to come, you have the ribbon right there for your gift giver to use. We did for years, like, have to trade bags back and forth through the family until we all had sewn enough to share and keep sharing outside of our families. All right, so now, okay, so now this is the bag with the box in it. When I put it down, you can see those little ears on the side there. Now, if I take the same item and I put it in this tote, I hope I made this one the same size. Now, when I set it down, there's no ears. It just sits right on its bottom. And then I can just cinch that right up there and make a cute little bag like that. So that is that tote. And then I'll just show you, I'm going to show you this one. We didn't make this one, but using the same method, you could take your tote, when you sew your seam here, you could add handles on the inside and make a little handled tote bag if you wanted to. So this is the same process as this tote. I just made some little handles to go with it. So when I put somebody's gift in this tote, I did have another box here. I don't know what I did with it. I had a smaller box to kind of put, oh, here it is. So again, if you don't want to have those little ears when you sit your gifts down, you could just make a little bag like this. And don't be afraid to use different fabrics, because these totes are reusable all year long. In fact, I have my very first tote that I made that I now use to hold my jewelry. This holds all of my jewelry tools. And this is the very first tote like this that I made years and years ago. And they're great little gifts for teachers if you need a little. Actually, that my inspiration was I made teacher lanyards and put them inside the tote and gifted the tote. And this was the first one I made, so I just had to keep it for myself until I perfected the process. And now you can just use it for anything. You can make your bags bigger or smaller. You can line them. You can make them for Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever holiday you celebrate. You can put birthday on the inside. So while there's little snowman dogs on the outside of this, I could always turn it inside out and use the red for a Christmas gift or something like that. Cute little wine tote too. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Chanel, thank you for all the camera changes and everything like that. I can't wait to see what you guys make. If you'd like to join us in a future class, I do have a class coming up using sawgrass and the sublimation printer to make, I'm gonna teach you how to sublimate your own bag. So a gift bag where you can put a picture on it, or create your own ribbon with names on it to go around a gift. So if you'd like to join me for the future classes, I'd love to see you. Thanks so much.